If you're like us and you need your garden to be as productive as possible, the time to start gardening is now. In today's video, we're going to share with you what we're up to.
Welcome to English Country Life. My name's Fiona.
And my name's Hugh. Welcome to the vegetable garden. Welcome to getting ready for spring.
We've got a lot to do. We've got pruning.
So much pruning. We've got dozens of fruit trees to prune. We've got black currants. We've got gooseberries. We've got white currants. We've got red currants. We've got raspberries. We've got blackberries. It's just endless.
We've planted a lot of seeds, and in a few short weeks those will need to be planted out, so all of the vegetable beds need to be prepared, ready for that to happen. And finally, we've got overwintering crops still in place that need to be tended. So we're going to get started now and look at pruning. This is our gooseberry patch, and there's three big jobs that I need to be getting on with at this time of year. During winter, all of the leaves have fallen from these gooseberry bushes, and because the gooseberry bushes have very, very long, brutal thorns, it's the perfect time of year to do any work on or around the gooseberry plants themselves. The first job that I want to do is weeding. Now, this ground is incredibly fertile, and that's because I'm taking the soiled bedding from the chicken coops and applying it straight to this area as a mulch. Rain gradually washes the nutrients from the chicken poop that's in that bedding into the soil, and it does make it incredibly nutritious for the fruit, but it also encourages weeds such as nettles. So I've got quite a few in here, and at this time of year I can see them, so I'm going to need to dig all of those out. The second job I'll get on with is pruning. These thorns on the branches make it very difficult to pick the fruit once we get to harvesting. So this time of year I can see the branches and I can cut everything into a beautiful bowl shape so none of the branches cross, and I'm not going to rip my hands to shreds. The last job I'm going to get on with is actually laying some of these branches down into the soil and pinning them down. And that's a method of propagation that gooseberries really take to incredibly well. Once one of their branches is pinned down into the soil, it will start to form roots, and I'll take you through that method because it's really easy to do. And once those roots are formed, I can just cut it away from the main stem, and I've got a brand new gooseberry plant which I can then grow on in another part of the garden and increase the number of plants I've got. I'm going to get started on the weeding to begin with. This is an area of the gooseberry bed which is particularly bad and needs lots of attention, so I've got my essential gardening kit with me. I've got my double-wheeled wheelbarrow, and 2 wheels makes it far more stable than a normal wheelbarrow. I've got this green bag because the barrow is going to be used for any branches which have fallen off this tree and any of those woody stems from the gooseberries when I start pruning. I'm going to put green material like this weed here, once I've dug that up, into the green bag. The green bag is so easy to lift up, and it means I can pour the contents straight into a compost bin. It makes life so much easier. The other things I've brought out with me is a little trowel, a pair of secateurs for the pruning, but I'm actually not going to be using the trowel a great deal because some of these weeds are so big. My trusty garden fork is a more essential bit of kit. You might have noticed the last bit of essential kit I brought out are these gloves. This is the thickest pair of gloves I could possibly lay my hand on, and that's because these gooseberry bushes have got those huge thorns on them, and I don't want my hands scratched to bits. So these are leather with a very thick fleece lining on the inside. I mentioned layering gooseberry bushes so you can get more plants, and this is a great example. A friend of ours has asked us for some more gooseberry plants, so we're going to dig up some of these layers for her. This gooseberry bush I've pruned out so it's got a lovely bowl shape, and there's actually no branches in there that cross anymore, so we won't get the risk of mould, and we should be able to get to the fruit very, very easily. This branch looks like it's going to cause a problem, but because it's a layered branch from the main bush and it comes out here, I'm just going to cut it off with the secateurs, and then I'm going to dig it out, put it in a plant pot and pop it in the greenhouse ready for our friend to come and collect it. At the end of that exercise, I've got a brand new healthy plant in a very large pot. I need to water it in, and our friend can then come and pick it up whenever she's ready. I hope you can see that layering gooseberry plants is an easy way of increasing the number that you have. So you can buy just one or two, layer them down during the autumn period, let them take root, and then in late winter, early spring, detach them from the main plant, pot them on, and you'll increase the number of plants you've got significantly.
This is more of a reminder. I'm not going to go into details today about how to prune a tree. We've got a video on pruning apple trees. We'll put a link up somewhere below. So if you want to know the details of how to do it, that's the place to go and watch it. What I am saying to you is now is the time to prune your top fruit. So your apples and pears, etc. Little warning, don't prune stone fruit at this time of year. And by stone fruit, I mean damsons and plums and gauges and cherries, because by doing so you can let in bacterial canker, you can let in silverleaf, all sorts of nasty things that they don't want to catch. Prune them around June time when that risk has passed. If you're going to prune your fruit trees, you need just a few tools. The first and most importantly, bypass secateurs. Get them razor sharp first. If you need any instruction on sharpening tools, just ask in the comments and we'll show you how to do it. Secondly, a pruning saw for larger branches. I like silky saws. I think they're the best out there. I'll put a link in the description to a couple of recommended models. There's also one that's a little bit cheaper called a Barco Laplander. Very good saw as well. With those two tools you can do the job, but if you have these, they help. This is a set of branch loppers, really good for cutting through thicker stuff, and this is an extended pruner, so you can cut high branches with that. It is not, as my mother would have it, a giraffe castrator, but it is very good for cutting off branches high in the air. The only other thing that's useful is a small set of steps. Now I would suggest watch your footing at this time of year, because the feet tend to sink into soft ground, so either a couple of boards or push the feet in well, but that'll get the job done. Something I really strongly suggest is giving your fruit trees a good feed with fish blood and bone after you've pruned them. It'll wash in well at this time of year and you'll get much stronger growth of fruit and foliage because they've got the nutrients they need. All these twiggy prunings, we'll cut them up into about 1 foot lengths, season them for a year, and that's the kindling ready for next year's fires.
In addition to our sizable bed of gooseberries, we've got 2 raised beds of currants. We've got 3 varieties in them. There's black currants, red currants and white currants. Just like the gooseberries, they need to be pruned into that lovely bowl shape. That means there's lots of air circulation, which, just like the gooseberries, it reduces mould forming and fungus forming on the fruit. It also means we can get to it much easier. So this is one of the currant plants. Now we're going to be making some changes this year because these plants are getting quite big and they're outgrowing the current coverage that we've got. We've got these goalpost arrangements with debris netting over the top, and that stops insects getting in, laying their eggs, and the caterpillars eating all the leaves before the fruit is formed. We're instead going to be putting some polytunnel frames over the top with netting on instead, so they'll have much more room to grow. But for now, I'm going to prune these into that lovely bowl shape.
One job you do need to do at this time of year, if you haven't already done it, get your seed potatoes and set them to chit. Chitting involves putting them somewhere not too cold, nice and bright, and letting them sprout. And you have to do it in a particular way. Mine are in an egg box to hold them up. And what I want the eyes to be uppermost. So these are the eyes, these little sprouting areas that you'll see on most potatoes. They'll be all over the potatoes, but they'll be most in one spot. So you set them in your little egg box or whatever you're using to hold them in the right orientation. Let them sprout about an inch. Then you've got a choice. If you rub off all but one or two of those little sprouts, you won't get as many potatoes, but they'll be much, much bigger. On the other hand, if you leave 4 or 5 sprouts, you'll get more smaller potatoes. So I tend to have bigger main crop potatoes and smaller new potatoes, because that's how we like to eat them. But definitely time to get on with your spuds.
You might think that at this time of year we're not spending a lot of time outside, but you'd be wrong. We're actually spending quite a bit of time in our vegetable plot. If it's not snowing and if the ground isn't frozen with ice, we're out here making sure that the beds are being prepared for the new planting season. We've removed a lot of the autumn harvested crops, and we do have some overwintering crops, but we'll show you those in a little while. But those beds which have now been cleared, we need to get rid of any weeds that have established, so there's a big weeding job there, and I'll finish it off by digging them over. That has 2 purposes. The first is it gets rid of any tap roots from the weeds that I've missed, and the second is to aerate the soil, and that means our crops are going to grow much, much better. It's going to encourage earthworms in, and we should get much better crops out of it. So I'm going to get started on the weeding. This is one of the vegetable beds which really does need some weeding. As you can see, weeds have started to take hold. Despite it being cold, weeds just seem to have this habit of springing up. We do have some overwintering crops in here. These are leeks, but we'll come on to those in a little while. But what that means is I can't use these tools really very close to leeks because the hoe and the spade could disturb those roots. So instead, for this small section here, I'm going to use a hand trowel, and then I'm going to start using these much bigger tools so I can get through this section much quicker. And that's it for now. There's no point in doing more to this bed until just before we get to the point of planting small plants out or sowing seeds straight into the soil. And that's because it's going to be a few weeks yet. All we wanted to do at this stage was get rid of the worst of the weeds and to get some aeration into the soil. Before those plants go in, we're going to add a lot of nutrition, and it's possible some new weeds may take hold, so we might just have to do a cursory weeding exercise all over again. But the main job is to add more nutrition from our compost area.
Now, one job you need to think about now is if you're going to be planting seeds shortly, as we are, it's only a couple of months to the veg beds behind me will see their first seeds, you need to make sure they've had a good feed. Now, we like to try and put manure on and compost on in the autumn, but that's not always possible, and we've got some full composters here, so now is a great time to spread that compost on the beds, rake it in well and get those seeds off to a good start. This is what you're looking for. You want all that green material to have broken down to something dark and rich. And it may be a little bit wet still because the ground's wet, but once you spread that into your soil and rake it in well, it provides plenty of nutrition for the coming year. Now's the time of year to take a good hard look at whatever you've left in the ground because it's an overwintering crop. These are our leeks as an example. We've still got 40 square foot of leeks and there's no way we're going to eat all of them before they start to regrow. So fairly soon what I'm going to need to do is lift most of these leeks, blanch them, freeze them, and then we can eat them over the summer. This is a tale of two onion beds, or rather one onion bed and different kinds of onions. This end of the bed last year I used to grow Rinsberger onions in, and I've left a few in because what I'm going to let them do is flower in this their second year, and I'll collect the seed heads and that'll be my seed for 2022. Now the other end of the bed, this part, I did that last year, and okay, I'm going to make a confession. I got busy, I was working, I didn't collect the seed heads quite early enough. I got a lot of seed off them, didn't get them quite early enough, and what happened is some of the seed became mature, spilled out on the ground, and blow me down, it sprouted. And all of these came from Rinsberger onions that flowered in this spot last year. Now, I read somewhere that if you plant onion seed in about August, outdoors, let it come up, it will overwinter successfully, and you'll get a really early start to growing your onions the following year. I've never tried it, and because I've got all of these, I thought, we'll give it a go this year. We'll just leave them in the ground, see what happens, and I'll keep you informed. But so far, through heavy frost, these young onions are doing absolutely fine. This bed looks awful, but actually it's really productive. It's our parsnip bed, and the frost has killed off the top growth. But under the ground are all these beautiful, sweet, tender and true parsnip roots. But look at the top. There's a little bit of green leaf showing there, and they're just about to sprout. So we need to get these harvested now and use them in whatever way we can. Now, some we'll blanch, we'll freeze, they'll go with our roast dinners right through the summer. But there's other uses for a parsnip. If you haven't tried it, curried parsnip soup is one of my favourites. And even better yet, you're not going to believe me, but I'm going to tell you, parsnip wine. It's light, it's white, it's like a good oak Chardonnay. It's absolutely delicious. Give it a try, it'll surprise you.
That's everything that we're doing to prepare our outdoor growing space for the new planting season, and that starts very, very soon.
Last year we were asked a lot to explain what we were doing and when we were doing it, to give some other people some insights into perhaps what they should be getting on with. So the last couple of videos we've done, we've shown how we extend the growing season using propagators, and some of those plants are already germinated. Today we've looked a little bit at the outdoor growing space. There's a lot more to do. We've also got a lot of infrastructure repairs that we've got to do, and maintenance tasks, and getting coops ready for coming breeding season and all that type of stuff.
And that will be the subject of a coming video.
So if you've enjoyed today's video, can you spare us 5 seconds? Give us a thumbs up down below and let us know in the comments what you'd like to see. Are we showing the right sorts of things for the people that asked us to tell them what to do and when to do it? Is there other things you'd like to know about that we haven't covered? Please let us know. Then hit that subscribe button and the bell next to it, and you'll hear every time we upload a new video.
For now, thanks for watching, and we look forward to seeing you next time.
Take care.